Are you struggling to lose weight and keep it off? Tired of wasting time and money on starvation diets that lead to more frustration and stress? If there was a weight loss solution that could actually work for you, would you try it? Then head to Golo.com.
I'm Steve. I lost 138 pounds in 9 months on Golo.
I'm Amber. I've lost 128 pounds with Golo.
If you're ready to take back control of your life, head to Golo.com now and see how Golo can work for you. That's Golo.com.
My sleep is way better. My inflammation has gone way down. Golo saved my life. I was way overweight. That's what sent me down the path. I wanted to make sure and live for my kid.
I have literally tried everything. I was on the verge of getting gastric bypass surgery, and I saw the Golo commercial, and it was the last thing I tried because it worked.
Join over 2 million people who found a better way to lose weight with Golo. Your healthier and happier life begins at Golo.com. That's Golo.com. Again, Golo.com.
Hello, I'm Wendy. Okay, the last time I did one of these solo, I had an EVP. Those kind of things are happening more frequently. I include some of the information I talk about here on my blog, Talking to Nightlights WordPress, so you can check that out for some backstory and more information. I started doing this show with the idea that I would share some of my information and the fact that each and every one of us is able to have these paranormal, anomalous, unexplained, psychic connections. It's been 25 years that I've had this interaction with the nightlight. 25 years since I started channeling. 25 years since things began to become more, I think, interesting in my life. That's created a lot of changes. There was an upheaval. I didn't know what to think. I was overwhelmed. I was ecstatic because I could see things happening in front of me with a nightlight and actually taking my nightlight out to demonstrate and show people the interaction. As my life continued to evolve and change and my circumstances changed, so did the experiences. And I had more abilities that I was aware of that I hadn't really tapped into. And so that expanded as well. My experiences helped me understand life after death. I think we're far more interconnected with the spirit plane, with those who are that we consider deceased on the other side in the afterlife, or were never part of that realm to start out with and just exist in a spirit form, non-local consciousness. For me, that's basically where we all have come from and where we all go. That this physical form is temporary. It's a unique way to travel and engage in this dimension, but this is very, very small expression of who we are in totality. And that was also helpful when I worked with and channeled the energy that comes to me through the nightlight. Now, it isn't just that light. Electricity is a way of engaging us and letting us know there's something else happening, like when the TV turns off and it shouldn't, or it turns on and it shouldn't, or a song plays that wasn't supposed to be playing, or you hear a fractured broadcast somehow. Those kinds of things. I remember one of the ladies I dealt with a long time ago, gosh, it might have been 20 years, it's been a while, Gail Rogers. She wrote Nicola's Woman. It became a bestseller for her. She explained that a lot of that was a past life memory, that she remembered this event happening, and it's pretty explicit. When she dealt with her computers, she had problems with the electricity and the electronics that she never really understood. She just considered it an adversarial relationship and went and plowed forward. As I have worked with my own computers and had them burn out, shut down, misbehave, and realizing that that's one of those little things that seems to happen to a lot of people who have experienced extraordinary, paranormal, unexplainable, energetic anomalies, that electricity is a challenge. When I was in Sedona back in 1998, I believe, I had an issue going back and forth. I worked at a radio station for a short time, and the trip between Village of Oak Creek over to the radio station, I can't remember if it was 8 miles, not that far. One morning I had guidance, directive, warning, do not drive in the water. Water in the road, don't drive in it. Well, it was raining. The road has been changed now. It's I believe it's 4-lane. Back at that time, it was just a 2-lane. There was a puddle on the road, and I'm like, okay, that's what they're talking about. And I drove around it. I got to work. When I got to work, one of the stories, my top stories, was the accident in that puddle. The road had been washed out underneath it, and what looked like a puddle in the road was actually missing road, and so it caused an accident. Do I call that a premonition? I call it guidance. Someone told me, warned me, don't do this, and I followed it. I don't know that we get to hear from people who don't follow it. I think that's the end of the road. So those kind of things happen. And the other thing was that on my way back and forth, I would hear tapping in the car. Now, the tapping, when I heard the tapping in the car, I tried to record it. And it would be like tap, 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 tap. I also heard that in the unit I was staying, a casita, they called it, in the village of Oak Creek, basically a condo. And I heard it on the picture frame. Interestingly enough, my girlfriend from college had that same kind of thing where she told me that her picture frame talked. And she told me about how it would tap. And I didn't really pay much attention to it at that point in my life. So this is 20 years later or so. I was asleep or almost going to sleep, and I heard the tap on the picture frame. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I realized it's a sequence. Something is trying to get my attention. Also in that casita, the TV would go on and off. And that happened at my house. But I just thought, well, the tube is going bad, about the old-fashioned TV. That's the reality that I lived in, that's how that was explained. And that was the purpose, the reason, the definition of what happened when things misbehaved and were beginning to burn out and get old, whatever. So when I realized it was in a sequence, I immediately shut down and did a blessing and tried to, increase my vibration, and realized, okay, that really wasn't what it was about. It wasn't trying to frighten me. It was trying to get my attention. So a lot of things happened to help me understand that these were ways of connecting us to a greater reality, these incidents, these experiences. And so going back and forth then, I was familiar with the tapping. So the tapping in the car, it sounded like it was on the back windshield, tap, tap, tap. Tap, tap, tap. It wasn't sequential. It was a deliberate tap 3 times. The memory I have is that it was a persistent tapping. And so when I finally took the recorder with me, I did get a tapping. The funny thing about that, I didn't hear it. On the recorder, I'm saying, as this is happening, I don't hear anything. I guess it didn't work. When I go back and listen, very loud tapping that I couldn't hear in the car. In regular time, I didn't hear that. I heard it on the audio. So I know that we are, in some ways, either sheltered, buffered, or unable to connect directly with some of this stuff that's happening around us all the time. And it's happening around us all the time. So what I wanted to do is to talk about recent events that helped me explain my 25 years and beyond, because it happened as I was a kid, that help, I think, us create a larger frame of reference for our reality. And instead of trying to connect the dots on one level and go linear, realize that all this stuff is happening on multiple planes, and it's whenever we are able to connect that then we can draw these points, these reference points that say, here's something else that might have influenced that. And I know that for the guides that I work with, not just the nightlight, what was explained as this started happening was that this is a visual. There's more going on. The visual is just a way for you to document it, to be aware of it, to acknowledge it. And when those lights burn out, it's a little traumatic for me because it's such a nice reminder and affirmation and proof that what I'm hearing, what I'm sensing, what I'm seeing is real. So that has been, in a way, a crutch. And then when they stop doing the regular behavior, which they do because eventually these lights do burn out, then I get a little bit more antsy and concerned. Am I doing something wrong? Makes no sense. Nothing has changed. Nothing is different. It's just that light bulbs only last for so long. Just like this body. our bodies last for so long. So recently, the people that I have wanted to interview and the people that I have engaged and the people that I have been able to make connections with are deceased. And an example of one of the people that affected me overtly, Alex Tanis. So I had to research him and find out more about what he was, and a very, very accomplished psychic who was tested extensively to prove that he could do what he said he did, that he could bilocate, that he could affect things through thinking, through his thought. And then I had a dream. In the dream, Mr. Tanis came up to me. He arrived in a black limo, which is, get your attention that way. That's one of my black limo dreams. The other involved men in black. Okay, so back to Mr. Tanis. Mr. Tanis walked right up to me and handed me two things. He handed me in one hand a present, a small box wrapped with a bow present. And in the left hand, no, let me have that. The left hand was the present. And the right hand, it makes a difference. The right hand was a stalk of celery, only it's the heart, where the celery is growing out of the heart. So it's basically regrowing, rejuvenating, rebirth. So that's in the right hand, and the left hand was the present. And so when I talked with J.M. DeBoard, he was like, oh, a gift from spirit, a spiritual gift. The things that he was trying to, with his dream interpretation and his analogies, say that's part of that. Well, I agree. It was a way of saying that there is a constant regeneration. And to me, it's rebirth, reincarnation. Everything has another plane of existence, another state of being, a continual rebirth, regrowth, reappearance, refresh. That was one of the things I thought would help in terms of my own connection with spirit, that when I have talked to people that we would consider called deceased and given information from them, there's no way I can prove it except by continuing to live and follow up on whatever information I was given. Recently, the people that I was hoping to and wanted to interview, I had the book, I had the outline, the contact, the literary agent, everything. They had died right after the book was published, or right as the book was being published. I interviewed two people who were connected with Nigel Kerner, and he's the one who wrote about the Greys and AI. He died right after the book was published. The other person, Alan Sanderson, MD. His book is Psychiatry in the Spirit World, True Stories on the Survival of Consciousness After Death. All right, well, and then the other person that I was guided in a dream to connect with, who is a medium, was a medium, and very adept at helping people make spirit connections, as was Alan, as part of his practice doing spirit release, was active in Sedona. Again, the little connection that I had, having been in Sedona, lived there for a while. His name is John Livingston. I was guided in the dream to connect with him. What I found out through these connections, just because we are deceased doesn't mean we have stopped interacting with the physical plane. The body is no longer represented here, but the spirit can be. And I started realizing, okay, I've had all of these people for all of this time who are not in physical form, but trying to help me, trying to guide me, trying to influence me, trying to give me breadcrumbs. Here's the Valentine's deal. It happened on the 12th of February that I had been doing some research on Picnic at Hanging Rock. I hadn't seen the film before. Somehow that came up in my search as I'm perusing the internet looking for show material. Her favorite, the author who wrote it, Joan Lindsay, her favorite holiday is Valentine's Day. So that's relevant. I can watch this and find out more about it, but I'm going to get the biography, because that also explains another part of her that she really wasn't that vocal about. And the explanation is that her husband didn't buy into any of this spirituality stuff or the medium stuff or ESP, or he wasn't a fan, and so she just downplayed it. And the book that she wrote deals with time. That isn't made public until after her death. That was her wish. They, when the book was published, left out the chapter explaining that, because there are so many people who have come forward and said, okay, this is it, and that final chapter has been published. I'm not giving anything away. It's still a fantastic story, and a story about Australia that includes that essence, that awareness, that energy of the indigenous people. It's the Super Bowl Sunday. I'm not going to watch that. Instead, doing this other stuff. We're planning doing the series. They did a series update on Picnic at Hanging Rock. And so watching the series, I get a text. The text is from my veterinarian who says that Max has an appointment on Tuesday, February 14th at 7:45 a.m. Well, the deal is I did have a dog named Max. My Max never went to this veterinarian, nor did I talk to the veterinarian about Max. He died in 2007. I was very, very, very connected with Max. A lot of my intuitive stuff worked with Max, and we had the guides told me the other is coming. The other is coming. I'm like, who the heck is the other? This is after I'd gotten into the nightlights, just really basically started. So 1998, I believe, is when Max appeared late in the year. And it was a thing of, he doesn't have anywhere to go. He's already been through 5 houses. And will you consider, hanging on to him like a foster? I thought, okay, fine. My husband said, yeah, right. Max came home, and there was a reason. I had post-traumatic stress from an attack earlier, like 10 years earlier. I didn't realize that I really didn't sleep through the night, that I was half asleep, half awake, or on edge. And it would be apparent when my husband came in, because he woke me up and all of a sudden I would scream. Okay, so Max arrived, and that went away. So Max was there for a lot of reasons, but he was the other. And at that time, the nightlight that I was using and had been using, it was actually a 20-year-old light, a little shell light. It had burned out, or was on the way to burning out. And I was very distraught that Max had left. He'd only been there a week, and he was missing. What I got was, he told me when he came home, he came walking down the sidewalk, and my husband said, he's here, he's back. And he was very contrite. He had his head down and looked at me, and I heard it was a squirrel. He went under the fence after the squirrel, and he couldn't get back in. It was an accident. I had just agreed to make sure that he would stay, to give him a walk morning and evening. So that started a new routine. And the nightlight that I had at that time, the very last time it came on was that morning to let me know Max was on his way home. So that was one of the first night lights that I started using, and it burned out. I got it replaced. And this second night light that is just now in the process of burning out. It's a little neon light, and I have a picture of it that I posted on YouTube on the internet. That light is in the process of burning out, and it's been difficult because what'll happen is for a month or a month and a half, it'll be dark, and that's the way it's always done. It was like, I'm not a nightlight. Get over it. This is not a dog and pony show. This is our way of connecting. So grow up. Okay, so I'm getting a lecture to let this light do its own thing. Somebody asked me, how do you know it's an entity? Well, because most nightlights don't do this, and the entity has explained that we are a tag team, and this is a collaboration, and this is how it works, and this is how I am able to connect. And at the same time, if the nightlight is not on or is not here, we are still connected. And just a very distinct and individual presentation that isn't mine. And so that's how I know that this connection for me works. So that light burned out. The next one has been active. I've taken it out and shown people. But there isn't much to show because I'm just showing you a blinking light. And this isn't your experience, it's my experience. So for people to say, how do you have proof? My proof is it's happening to me. And I think that's all that's necessary. However, we judge people that way, and if it's happening to them and no one else, then something is wrong. I think that means something is right, that we, as individuals, are experiencing things on different planes of reality. My reality is not the same and in sync with everyone else's reality, and that's why I can have these experiences. I do believe that we shift time, and that goes back to this Picnic at Hanging Rock. So here's this time shift where I get a memo, a text, a reminder from someone I loved. So that, as I'm watching this film and getting into the information about the woman who wrote Picnic at Hanging Rock, they actually omitted the last chapter. This was published in a separate edition. Chapter 18, The Secret of Hanging Rock. So you can check that out because that explains what happens. We're going to take a quick break.
Be a barbecue hero with delicious, ultra-low net-carb Hero Bread, buns, and tortillas. Soft and fluffy, high in fiber, and with 0 grams of sugar, up to 10 grams of protein, coming in at under 100 calories per serving. Oh, and did I mention they taste like their mouth-watering traditional versions? I mean, what's not to love? Use code AH10 for 10% off your first Hero Bread purchase at hero.co. That's AH10 for 10% off at hero.co.
My education would cost $42,000, but with VA benefits, I'm paying $0. VA covers my tuition, supplies, and housing, and it can cover yours too. Get what you earn. Visit choose.va.gov.
Not all veterans are eligible for the type or amount of benefits mentioned here.
Continuing now. I have to back up. There's another thing that goes along with this. Thursday night, my husband said he had a phone call in his ear. It was a phone ringing in his ear. His phone rang once, heard it like it was right next to him. It wasn't. Well, the next night, I had the very same thing happen. So early Friday morning, I have this phone ring in my ear. The odd thing, which made it even odder, was I left the phone in a different room. I never do that. I use it for the alarm, and it wasn't there. So technically, if I was trying to make it make sense and think, well, I must have misheard it, it was impossible because the phone was not in the room. So I hear the phone ring, and it's like 3 a.m. 8 a.m., as I'm doing traffic, the light behind my computer starts flashing. I'm thinking, what the heck? I know it's trying to get my attention, so I start doing a search, looking at the internet, and finally I do see that I have a message from my aunt. Now, the message is like a video call, and she never does that. Not only that, it was like 7. When I look at the message at 8 o'clock, she had done this around 7:30 or something like that. Later on, when I talked to my aunt, she says, I didn't do that. She said, you called me. And she said, well, the phone did make an odd little, it vibrated, and it woke me up. I was asleep, and it woke me up. Okay, so then we tracked the phone to see what happened. No, it originated from her phone and called my phone. There's another thing that happened. I went to visit my aunt, and when I first started doing a lot of this other work and realizing that rocks have energy and they can influence you. Again, I can't go into too much of this. There's just too much information to take it to a wider plane but at the moment. So we'll just say that was an influence I had that reminded me that that more things are happening here than we are consciously aware of. It's overwhelming. That's how much is going on. And I went to a gem and mineral show, rock show. And the first time I went, I was absolutely overwhelmed, blown away, physically impacted. And I was around black pearls at that time, and it hurt my heart. I felt myself, and this was later after we had left and I was still around the black pearls, the influence was so intense that I felt myself leave, and I felt my heart it hurt. There was a pain. And then my husband, he immediately acted, and I was able to bring myself back out, realizing that the black pearls have an entity. And the entity is like the sirens that you hear the stories about, the sea sirens that, the sailors go into the water. And that was my experience. What happened to me was these, and they're very bubbly, and they're fun. And so my reaction was I was going to follow them because they were it was very seductive. It was like, come follow us, come play, and there's joy, and there's laughing, and there's just... And then what I got from them was they didn't acknowledge that if we left our physical body the way that they wanted us to, that meant our physical body would no longer be functional. Okay, this is a reality for me that is very difficult to share because I'm saying things that other people aren't familiar with and don't accept as a possibility. And it doesn't mean everyone. It means the people that I was concerned about at one point who might think that I was not functioning and my faculties might be a little bit off. Then I kept it quiet. I also didn't want to give it too much validity, and I wanted to get past the point where I was influenced by that. Okay, well, that influence happened again. Only this time it was in the presence of mindset and very, very cement, concrete, stone mindset. And my mindset is a little bit more flexible. And I didn't expect that I needed to be more grounded in this environment, but that happened. And so there it is, that heart issue, which then it took me 24 hours to clear. So at the time I'm getting this little text from Max, it helped elevate and bring more energy back because of my connection with Max, and also remind me that something else was happening. So there was that anomaly and that 8 a.m. wake-up call. Jack, when my light started going off, Jack barked. The minute it started flashing, the computer went just fine, but the light behind it is flashing and surging, kind of a surge. That light actually burned out because it's not the kind that is built to take the fluctuation. There are some lights that handle that. This one isn't. So it actually, after half an hour, said, "See ya." But at the time it burned out, Jack came in the room and barked again, like a bookend. And I was also looking on the screen, the book Deep Weird, The Varieties of High Strangeness Experience, edited by Jack Hunter. With that on my screen and all these things happening, I'm putting together the connection that I need to talk more about my personal experiences, at least continue to put them out there. You can't explain to somebody easily that this is your reality without them saying, "I need a drink." Because it makes everything then be unstable. There's more chaos in the world, and nobody wants chaos. They want everything to be explained. Like the things that have happened with the shooting down the balloons, and all the entire spectrum of they're going off the deep end to this is a military thing, and it's like nobody knows. But the fact that is the unknown leaves it up in the air, which is what's so brilliant about going back to the book, the story, Picnic at Hanging Rock. I don't need to say anything else about that. I think if you would like to check it out, then the series is available, and the book's available, the movie's available, and Joan Lindsay is the author, and it makes things, again, less concrete. Things are left up in the air. Your mind can influence you to believe that certain people are guilty, certain people had a part in this, and that was why it was such a hit, because they left it an open ending. To me, that's what we're living. It depends on how your core beliefs influence you and what you choose to allow as your reality. That's what will happen in your life. And I have seen it when I've started being more focused on whether it's a UFO thing, whether it's hauntings, life after death, or dealing with spirits. Then I will have things presented. Usually for me, it's in the dream. A long time ago, I had a vision, and it was a vision of Edgar Cayce. I later saw a picture of him exactly as I had seen in the vision. And what it said was, "You will be instructed similar to Edgar Cayce." And they called him the sleeping prophet. For me, what that meant was that I would get information in my dream times. And they gave me a praying mantis as a way of integrating that and remembering it with the animal reference. And spirit guides. I'm talking, this is where I get my information, spirit guides. Doesn't mean that the entities, the individuals, the spirits who speak to me have ever been human. The entity that I deal with the most and dealt with at the beginning was the energy. That's what I called it, and didn't want a name. Said that name wasn't going to be helpful. And at the time that I was doing this, the channel Abraham Hicks was very active, and so people were saying, "You need to follow so-and-so and such and such." I already had someone that I had been influenced by, Pat Rodegast, and she wrote the manual books. And I already had this information coming in from other sources. I didn't feel like I needed to follow anybody. I also didn't, at the time that this happened, consider myself to be a channel or have any indication that that would be part of my life. But with all of this happening and the nightlights being a very strong influence, it was a visual where I could make it real. I could see it as a reality. It was concrete. It was happening right in front of me. And other things that happened to stimulate that and to corroborate that were the out-of-body experiences that went with that, working with spirit guides where they throw you out of your body. With my aunt, who helped me learn to channel. For 3 years. The first year, it was just she and I was trying to figure out how to be consistent once a week with the channeling. The second year I channeled women because I could, that energy, there was a difference, and so I could channel with women. So we had, again, once a week. And then the third year, it was men and women. And the deal was to tell me a way that I could work my energy and understand that males and females have different energy. And working as a channel, you can be influenced by that as well. My experience with channeling, females have a lighter energy. They're more fluid. The male energy is in your face. That masculine energy is in your face. Now, that doesn't mean that's universal. Some people are more masculine in their expression or feminine in their expression, and you can feel that, sense that on an energetic level when you're in their space. So for me, that was learning to differentiate with that and understand how it influenced me. And what my response might be. Automatically, because of that influence, I might respond a certain way. That could be the wrong response because I'm interpreting an energy and misapplying that because I think that's also what the person is thinking. Or understanding that their energy is convoluted. They're presenting it a certain way, but their energy is telling me something differently. These are the things I was learning as a channel, as an intuitive, and as a very normal human who's learning how to work and how to understand and interpret the other information we get that is psychic, PSI, extrasensory information constantly. It's always there. So with all of that, then this time thing, which I've experienced as a bubble, and when you have a near-death experience, then you're out of that bubble into the time that's all at once. And so you don't have the linear feeling. You have that everything is happening. For me, being out of body, everything was black. Truly out of body, out of form, out of the physical confine. But the black wasn't negative. It was just, it was everything. Everything is possible. And I was allowed to see my specific presence. And it was like a little egg, and the colors, it was the white was around it and all the colors inside of it. And it's like, I realized that's me. I was also seeing my form, but there was nothing else there. And so the person sitting beside me on the couch, the person who is a therapist working with me, they're gone, and it's just me. And then the guides are saying, okay, this is what we're working on and what you're working on. That it was an instant throwing me out of my body to show me that, okay, here, now you're on a different plane, and this is actually more real than the things that you're seeing in front of you. Okay, that was exciting and interesting and mind-shattering. That's one time. They shifted time for me when my aunt told me, I'm having her repeat what they're telling me, and they're telling me that she needs to count to 2. And I'm under hypnosis, and that doesn't mean I'm gone. It just means I'm setting aside my reality to experience something else for a minute or two. And so they say, you're going to count to 2. She's going to count to 2. And I don't remember if they said it, we're going to take you home. I knew something big was going to happen when they under a 2 count. I'm like, yeah, right. So as I'm hearing them tell me this, I'm skeptical of, yeah, this is impossible. This is fiction. And then my aunt, as soon as she said 2, I was gone. There was no more me. It was completely, I felt like everything melted. I was one with everything. It was that moment of, if you could see a tidal wave or a nuclear, it's just that imminent explosion that's like, whew, that, I wanted to stay there. I have never before or since felt anything that compares to that. And it's worth it. But I also knew that's where I was going to be eventually, and I didn't need to be there at that moment. And if I stayed there, I wouldn't be able to come back, because that's how shattering to your mind that kind of experience can be. No drugs. Just that's a mind, all mind. And so when they did that and she counted to 2, I knew that I needed to come back. And so I came back into my body. I just remember, if they could do that to me in that way, then these beings, this presence, this non-linear element can shift us in ways that we cannot begin to fathom. And for some of us, that's an ET experience. For others, it's a near-death experience. For others, it's a transcendent spiritual experience, STE. There are books about all this. I didn't know that at the time. I had no idea what was even happening, except that I was experiencing this energy with a nightlight who's helping me to learn to channel because I need to figure out what's going on. And that was the best way for me to give it a context, give it a form, give it a forum. So with all of that, again, going back to the Valentine thing, if we exist, multiple timelines, multiple presences, different lifetimes, and we reincarnate. So we've been doing this 2 or 3 or 4 to 5 times. And I did remember a reincarnation experience, which also had to happen along with Max coming in and helping me get rid of the post-traumatic stress. I had a lifetime issue. And this was when I went to a massage therapist. I did that for 10 years, helping me work to realign my energy and help me integrate some of the things in a way that that caused me less physical discomfort, like I told you with the black pearls, okay? That was no fun. And saying that happened again, it's like, holy cow. But I realized, oh, this has happened before. This happened before, only this time it was a very hardcore mindset. Very hardcore mindset. Things are set in stone. And then that impact on me was heartbreaking. Oh, okay, well, that wasn't mine. So as soon as I realized it wasn't mine, I didn't have to have the heartbreak or the heartache. And so that all I did was then reshift my awareness and increase my vibration, my frequency, and help repel that influence. All right? So maybe if you've had any of these experiences, some of this will make sense to you. You might be well beyond it. I'm trying to get it out so at least it has somewhere to go for someone who may be experiencing some of these things and not having a resource or having somebody else validate them by saying, yeah, me too, I've been there. I know what it's like. And I know it can be challenging at the beginning. You want to tell everybody and nobody's listening because it's too weird and because it doesn't happen for them and it can't happen for them. It couldn't happen for me until it did. All of this stuff happening makes it real. And me being able to talk to people who are no longer here in physical form came along with that. And I kept saying, I don't want to see dead people. I don't want to see dead people. I don't want to be frightened. And they said, they're not dead, they're energy. Get over it. Oh, okay. And so then I've seen dead people. Not necessarily in body form, but yes, some of them in body form. Alex Tannis. And conversations with them. People I wanted to interview. I'm getting their information. They're no longer in the physical form to help me with it. But they left breadcrumbs in their books, in their information, in their websites, in their transactions with other people, and their memories. Other people have memories of how they did certain things. It's all still here. It's all part of who we are. And it depends on what dimension you tap into to what kind of information you're going to get. I don't want the personality stuff. I don't care about their relationships. I don't care about the drama, the soap opera. If I cared about all of that, I wouldn't have been able to take Carlos Castaneda's stuff seriously, which I didn't at first, until something I read in a book happened to me physically. And I'm like, he might have known a thing or two. Or whoever he dealt with knew a thing or two. Or at the time he was writing, he was in a phase or a state that gave him information that he might not have had physically, literally, mentally. It was there, channeled. So these things I understand more now, having been through them. With all of that, we come back to, again, existing in a different dimension, on a different plane, in a different reality, in a different form or non-form. The presence, the essence of who we are exists without us having to have a physical container. When I go back to that, I go back to that Valentine. The Valentine that said, Max has an appointment with a vet, February 14th, 7:45 a.m. I would never have made that appointment. I'm not available till after. So that was it. And so it's another dog or cat, as I don't know. But what I do know is that Picnic at Hanging Rock is about time not being linear, about things happening that we don't anticipate because we haven't considered it from that angle. since I am still investigating and exploring Joan Lindsay, the author, and her connection to the indigenous Australians and the Dreamtime, which I have also had an encounter with. The last time I interviewed a woman about her experiences, the morning of the interview, I experienced beside me on the bed, just right there in the next pillow, someone said, "Wendy." And the voice was just clear, crisp, Wendy. Just like the phone call in my ear, the phone call in my husband's ear. Non-corporeal, psychic, transcendent. The other issue is Joan. She died. But she also would have had a connection to Valentine's Day because it was her favorite holiday. Out of the blue, I get a Valentine from Max, who relates to me, from someone who thought Valentine's Day was very important. Could Joan have had a hand in this? I'm not going to say one way or the other, just to say that it's possible. And where you go with this is your trip. It's your journey. I do want to say, anything is possible. Be aware of what you're thinking, because that does influence your reality. Stay curious. There's so much more going on here than we have time in our entire lifetime to experience, to understand, to incorporate. But when we start exploring outside the box, outside of our limitations, outside of our present-day rock-solid mindset, we discover the magic that's been here all along. I include some of the things I talked about in this segment on my WordPress blog, talkintonight.wordpress. Thanks for listening.